There's so much to learn about a person if you start observing them in the 5 following ways. The first one I'm going to start with is how they speak about people when they're not around. Now, you've heard me say gossip is the currency of the poor. Now, it's really interesting, these people that in one moment when they're around the person, they're like, oh my God, yes, it's amazing, it's so good to see you, it's fantastic, well done, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. As soon as the person leaves the room, they're like, did you see what they were wearing? Did you see the way they're looking? Whatever. If it's at work, their idea is hopeless. Never going to get it. If they'd done it my way, it would be so much better. Gossip is the currency of the poor. I keep saying it. So just observe people, how they speak about other people when that person is not around. And it'll change, and it'll give you a very valuable insight. The second thing you can learn about a person when you start observing them is how they react when something unexpected happens. Something needs to change. Or when they don't get their own way. Now, this shows their adaptability. It also shows how they are fixated on something, and generally they don't have range. They don't have many experiences under their belt, and most often these people need certainty, and because they're needing certainty, the place of uncertainty somewhat makes them anxious. Now, these people are generally not very curious about things. They're not going to take a risk, even if it's only small. They're not going to really try new things. However, they will if it's done through, power of numbers, whatever it may be, but it's begrudgingly done. So it's really interesting. So just observe how these people react when something unexpected happens or when they don't get their own way. Now, the third thing which you can learn about a person by observing them is what they do when you don't agree with them. Do they sulk? Do they become a bully? Do they end up becoming... Do they get intimidated, or are they intimidating? It's interesting because this also ties in to the other one I was speaking about, is when something unexpected happens. So are they agreeable? Sometimes people are way too agreeable, and that's not fun. But then being on the other end of the ledger and being disagreeable with anything, being a pain in the ass for the sake of being a pain in the ass, can also be very difficult. So what happens when you don't agree with them? Are they interested? Do they get curious? Do they turn around and want to learn more? Do they want to explore what's going on? Or do they become stubborn and fixated on their point of view and then become argumentative? Very tiring, this one. Now let's move into the fourth thing. Now the fourth thing that we can learn about somebody once we start observing them is how they behave when they're stressed, or in anxiety, or when they're uncomfortable. This one's interesting because it starts to bring out those negative behaviors of ourselves. Are they open and receptive? Are they willing to listen to what's available in the conversation? Because some people become very erratic in this with their emotions, and you see, because they haven't really grasped their emotions, they haven't gotten hold of them and learned to understand them. You see the flick of anger, guilt, shame, this range of them, and they stay in them, and then that develops into a mood. So it's really interesting to understand the mood of the person. It's just to see, well, just to observe their behaviours when they are in these uncomfortable or in these stress situations. Sometimes these situations enable people. They become very motivated by them. Other people, they disappear. They're totally disabled from it. The fifth and the last thing you can learn about a person when you're observing them. There's another whole list, but just today we're just going to go through the 5. The last one is possibly one of the most important. It's how they respond when you share how you feel. Now, yes, as humans, we do things, we are doing beings, but also more than that, we are feeling beings. So when we are sharing ourselves, a concern, an emotion, a feeling, whatever it may be, sometimes we just want to be heard. Now, there's those people that like to one-up. Oh, yeah, I know how you feel. You should have seen last week such and such happened to me, and it was terrible. They steal it back off you. There's other people that will just sit there and offer heaps of advice, and I've been this person before because I'm very solution-based. They will sit there and offer all these solutions and this and that, but they're not really listening to how you're feeling. And then there's people that often say nothing, and sometimes that's the best thing. They're just there and they say thanks for sharing, whatever it may be. But just observe them. Like I said, you can learn a lot about a person following the other 4 things based on how they respond when you share how you feel. You get to see their capacity in these situations and how centered they are with themselves.